Please welcome to the stage Monica Watson, Vice President at Novartis, and Zara Gerald, Managing Director at Schwab.
Good morning and good afternoon. Really pleased to be here and even more thrilled to introduce this session. I'm Zara Roberts-Gerald, Managing Director at Charles Schwab. This session's topic is Adapting to Change, Strategies for Resilience and Growth. And I'm really thrilled to kick off this insightful conversation with Monica N. Watson of Novartis. Monica has over 20 years of legal experience, and she serves as Vice President, Legal Head for the U.S. Innovative Medicines Integrated Marketing Organization. She was a critical member of the Novartis COVID Task Force, as well as its Transformation for Growth Project Management team. She serves on the U.S. Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Council. She's also a mentor and to a number of Novartis associates. Monica is most proud of playing a critical role in launching the Novartis More Than Just Words campaign, a multi-year commitment to promoting health equity in breast cancer care where there's a significant unmet need. While providing guidance and leadership to the team as they navigated uncharted territory for the organization, Monica took ownership of the artistry and penned the spoken word that serves as the campaign's platform for breast cancer screenings in the Black community. The piece featuring Monica's words and voiceover has received notable recognition across the globe. Monica volunteers in her local community and was elected and re-elected in November 2021 as her school board president. Like many women, she finds ways to delicately balance the demands of her role, her family, including 2 children, and her community responsibilities. So, hello, Monica, and we are going to kick it off immediately because we've got limited time here. So in this session, we are addressing the challenge of smoothly adapting to organizational changes and embracing those changes as opportunities to maintain or even drive professional growth. So let's get very clear about this challenge. So Monica, your bio touches on how you supported Novartis during some transformational periods. For example, your leadership during the pandemic and how you've been an agent of change with the More Than Just Words campaign. Would love for you to share a bit more with us about the organizational challenges you've navigated through and how you've turned those into opportunities for growth. So would love to hear more from you, Monica.
Absolutely. And thank you for that very kind introduction. So I've probably gone through quite a bit of change at Novartis. Somebody once, one of my old mentors told me, and boss told me, that the only thing constant at Novartis is change. So I'm very familiar with it. So the first thing I would say is you have to just lean into it and just get comfortable with the uncomfortable. A lot of people, especially lawyers, do not like change, do not like anything that's different than what they're used to or living in the box that we've created. But I find that you really just need to embrace it. Be open to new challenges, be open to new roles, be open to a career path that's different than what you had maybe envisioned or thought about. So one of the big changes, we are constantly going through transformations just to make the company more faster, more agile, more open to kind of what's going on in the world, not just from things like the pandemic, but changes that are happening constantly. Right now, we're going through a large digital transformation. So you have to just kind of move with what's going on in the world. And Novartis is very open to that, especially as a medicines company. So we're constantly restructuring our teams to reflect the people that we serve, the patients that we make medicines for. And I'm very much involved in all of those transformations, from a P&O, which is what we call our H&R, HR department. We call it people and organization. And from a legal perspective, I'm heavily involved in all of that. And then now in my current role, I'm very much involved in kind of the digital AI aspects of what we're doing as far as integrating that into our marketing. So I think I've been through quite a lot of change at Novartis, but excited. It keeps me on my toes, and it makes me problem solve a little bit differently, and it makes me not plan too far in the future, but it makes me kind of embrace the day to day.
Great. So you mentioned that lawyers may have a particular challenge with embracing change, and that resonates for me as a fellow attorney. I'm curious, as you look back on your own journey, were you sort of just coded differently to be able to embrace change? Or is there a muscle that you built along the way? And if so, like, how did you do that?
Oh, great question. I think I was originally coded not to like too much change. When you come from law school, you look at problem solving, but in a very like systematic way. You look at the issue, you figure out, what laws are going to fit into this particular issue, and then you kind of govern yourself accordingly. And I mean, we have a little bit of flexibility. One day you could be doing, something in the pharma industry. The next day you could be do something in the finance industry. So we have that bit of flexibility, but overall it was a problem, find the laws, and apply them. I found, however, that the other part that was very rigid is it's hierarchical. You learn that you graduate from law school, you go to a law firm, you work your way through. At least that was the way that I was told you had to do it. I didn't really have family members who had been through it before. And I went through that and didn't make partner at my law firm. And it was the first time that I was hit with, what are you going to do with you? Now you are thrown something that you didn't expect. What are you going to do? How are you going to pivot and change and respond to that? And I think that was the beginning of me learning this muscle of being much more flexible with myself. I think I'm flexible in other aspects of my life, but I was never flexible in my career, and it forced me to be flexible. And since that time, I think I've always embraced, okay, well, what's the next new challenge? And am I happy in my current role? And am I feeling fulfilled? And I constantly do this assessment every year to 2 years to make sure that I'm in a place where I feel like I'm getting the most out of my career and the most out of my company.
Terrific. Something you said leads me down a path of asking you about those changes, those kind of pivot points that feel like they might be setbacks in the immediate term. And what would you advise your mentees when they're encountering situations like this where, wow, it feels like this is not the road that I meant to travel down, but now I'm faced with it. What advice do you give them?
Take a moment to be in it. I was very much in it. I cried. I lamented. I mourned kind of the opportunities and dreams that I had. And I gave myself some time to do that, because you really do need to be okay with, this didn't work out. And why didn't it work out? And what would I have done to make it different if I wanted it different? Or now that I'm in this position, what do I really want? Because I find that oftentimes we don't ask ourselves that question. We just see the next horizon and we're like, oh, I got to get that job. I got to move up the chain. I have to be promoted, get an opportunity. That's always the next thing. But very often I don't find that we pause and say, okay, am I happy? Am I doing what I want to be doing? Could I still be a lawyer, but doing it someplace else that would give me more flexibility, more ownership of my career? So I would tell people to be in the moment, feel the feelings, and then cut yourself off and say, okay, let's make a plan for the next stage, and really do an analysis to figure out what it is that you want and what will make you happy, and then look for those opportunities. I feel like those pivot points are times where you can really set your own path, and it gives you a moment to pause and reflect and say, am I doing what I want to be doing?
Totally agree. Totally agree. And so much of what you just said feels relevant to my own history. So thank you for that. Now that we have some clarity about kind of like the foundational principles of these challenges, I would love to start talking a bit about kind of solutions. And much has been said about resilience, which people often end up confusing with the concept of robustness. The way that I think about it, robustness is being able to withstand change and the challenges that come from those changes. And resilience is more being able to bounce back and recover from the unexpected change or the consequences of those changes. Um, what advice might you have for Black corporate professionals about how it is that they go about building that quality of resilience?
Another great question. I think first and foremost, I would say being open. A lot of us are not open to very different experiences and opportunities. The second thing I would say is learn and meet as many people as you possibly can, because a huge part of my resilience or my ability to be resilient is knowing people, meeting people outside of my universe that can both advise, mentor, support, help. Oftentimes we need help throughout our careers just to get in the door somewhere. So building those networks, because they're incredibly important to resiliency. I also think taking time to really know yourself and what you want is important. Resiliency only works if you have a path forward. And if you don't know exactly what it is that you're looking for, I think it makes it a little bit more difficult.
Right. So, sort of speaking about those paths forward, let's talk a bit about sort of organizations and how they can support us. In particular, if an organization does want to support the resilience of their Black talent, what kinds of things might they do? What kind of programmatic support or otherwise might they provide to Black professionals?
Well, I'll start with the easiest one, and that is just having Black leaders. And I know that sounds so basic and so easy, you would think, in today's day and age, but unfortunately, it's still not the case. We still don't see the representation we would like to see, especially at the highest levels of companies. I am incredibly lucky and privileged to have my chief legal officer, as you've all seen from some of the videos that you've been watching in the interim of all the sessions. But I happen to have a Black leader, a Black female leader at that. And it's rare. I wish I could say it's commonplace and they're in every company. You see Black leadership, but that's not the case. So that's the first thing. The really easy thing is just ensuring that you elevate, that you give opportunities to have Black leaders move through the company, but be leaders, true leaders, that they're at the front and outward, externally facing for your company, that they're not just sitting in an office doing the work behind the scenes, but they are really representative of your company. Two, I would have programs and mentors. Again, at Novartis, we have the Multicultural Engagement Program, not only geared for Black professionals, but Brown professionals and other minorities as well. We're opening it up. But it's a great opportunity to have a coach, to have a class of people, excuse me, that is going through something similar to you, that understands kind of what it is like to be a Black professional, to go through a matrix organization, to need a support system, to need allies, to have mentors, etc. That's another huge thing that I think has helped my career immensely. And then again, that network of individuals that speak about you when you're not in the room, that speak on your behalf, perhaps when you are in the room, but when you need a little bit more cachet. And those people who are by your side when you need the support for whatever it is, whether it be, a career move or whether it be a career change. I think you need that network of individuals around you.
Yeah, and I have also been very fortunate to have an amazing network of sponsors and mentors along the way, and they're so crucial to our learning journeys. They're so crucial to our development. So I think you're spot on there, Monica. I am curious about something. So, how do you suggest Black professionals balance the need to adapt to change and to be resilient while also staying true to their authentic selves and values? This is something we've seen a lot discussed over the last several years, and I'm curious if you've kind of developed a viewpoint about that.
Yeah. I think in particular, it's always important to be your authentic self. And I would never advise somebody to do or say or act in a way that wasn't aligned to their authentic self. However, I welcome everybody to really consider stepping outside of their comfort zones. And I think that I'm saying a lot of the same things, in different ways, but I think it's really the tenets that have gotten me to where I am. I'm a huge volunteer, not in the typical sense of volunteerism, like outside activities and volunteering for your neighborhood or your church or your religious organization, whatever it is. But really understanding, raise your hand in your company. Someone says they have a project. It's not in your particular area. Raise your hand. Not only will you build your network and meet new people, but it forces you to build that resiliency, to build that adaptability, the agility that people are looking for, because you have to learn the new area, you have to meet the new people. It just gives you an avenue to not only kind of work in your work to help your own professional development, but also works to build some areas where we haven't naturally built those things. And it happens much more naturally when you do it and raise your hand. I also look for just opportunities that I wouldn't think, or I don't think that I need. Maybe it's not a gap area, but it's just something different. I don't like getting grass under my feet at all. I always like to learn something new. And even if I don't ever intend on being a mergers and acquisition lawyer, which is not my wheelhouse, recently I'm working on a deal, and it's because I want to understand. I work on the other side after we've acquired or after we're divesting, but I want to see what it's like to actually work through a deal. It doesn't mean that that's what I want to do in 20 years or even tomorrow necessarily, but it means that it's a huge opportunity for me to learn another area of the business and meet a whole bunch of people that I've never worked with. So I think you just have to embrace kind of those opportunities.
Terrific. We're approaching kind of our Q&A time. I just have another question or two before we start taking questions, but it's always, comfortable to talk through those successes, and no doubt we all have many of those. But would you feel comfortable talking to us about a misstep that you've had along the way that has taught you something, and how that represented an opportunity for growth for you?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So as I already mentioned, I spent 10 years at a law firm thinking that I wanted to be partner, and then I didn't get it. And again, after I sat with my emotions and really kind of thought through what I was going to do next, I realized pretty quickly I did not want to be at a law firm anymore. That was not what was making me happy. I was not enjoying the billable hour. I was not enjoying, I wasn't enjoying not being a part of the clients we were serving. I really enjoyed when I got put on a case and I got to learn a new area of the business and dive in and interview those clients. And so the more and more I thought about that, the more and more I said, wow, I'm not even sure I was on the right pathway from the very beginning. And so while devastating, do not get me wrong, had I made partner, who knows, I maybe still would be there and be at a law firm, but I didn't have that opportunity. It was a huge career setback for me. But it did make me analyze and sit down and say, okay, what do you really enjoy? And that's where I sat in that moment and said, this is what I like. This is what I excel at. This is what I don't excel at. And how do I find a job that kind of meets all of those needs? And that really did start my 1 to 2 year self-assessment to ensure that I'm doing that regularly, because that changes over time as we grow and as our families grow and as we change. That continues to evolve as well. So I think that was a really important learnings from something that was really difficult at that time in my life.
Thank you for that. So I'm going to read some of the questions that we are getting in, and they're really good ones. So do you have tips, Monica, for navigating change when it occurs without your input and before reaching a steady state of the previous change in a short span of time?
Oh, that's a good one. So I can share, I shared a little bit that Novartis went through a major transformation at this point 2 years ago, maybe a little under 2 years ago. And it was so that we aligned our business more to be a more focused medicines company. And we had previously divided it between pharmaceuticals and oncology. And now we've combined them all and we're one innovative medicines. And we still do have therapeutic areas, but we've combined them all so that we could have some synergies, both with talent, but also with the medications that we were making. And that was a massive undertaking, huge change for the organization. Lots of people impacted, not in I've lost a job, although many people did also lose their roles, but more importantly, lots of people impacted because their roles changed significantly. They were supporting much larger businesses, much different businesses. They were supporting a business that was still forming and figuring out how it was going to be serving their patients differently. So that change was massive. And we learned as we started making the change, maybe we didn't get it exactly right. And we started making some additional changes. And so you're still on the heels of those changes and you're making some more changes. And so we're very much going through that right now. And I would tell any person who's either on my team or that I work with alongside, you got to learn to roll with the punches, and that change is not bad. Embrace it. Change brings about lots of new opportunities and lots of opportunities for you to develop and get stronger. And always try and look at the positive side of all of that change, instead of, I think we are conditioned to think of, oh no, change, this is not going to feel good. This is going to be very uncomfortable. And what do I do? Instead say, oh, change, this is great. What am I going to learn from this opportunity? What can I do differently? How can I support the change? And what am I going to learn kind of moving forward?
Yeah. I love that sense of optimism that underlies so much of what you're sharing with us. And I think that's really important because, it can feel very big when you're going through all of these changes and it happens one after the other and you feel like, you've lost your equilibrium. So as a foundation, having a change mindset that's grounded with optimism, I think is really important. It is something that we can all practice, and I try to do myself. So another question from our audience here: how do you lead a team through change with a growth mindset instead of a fixed mindset?
These are great questions. Again, challenge, challenge, challenge. When some of my team members approach a problem in the box, I challenge them. I ask them tons of questions. I don't give them the answer. I force them to think about it differently. And you'll be surprised at how quickly their mindset shifts from that fix to more of that growth. But it takes time and patience, quite frankly. And I find a lot of leaders just want to jump in and solve the problem themselves. But I strongly encourage people to get your team to start thinking about things differently, ask a lot of questions. It will make them think differently, but more importantly, sometimes you'll come up with something even more innovative than what you thought. Because I think two minds is always better than one. And so if you just ask a lot of questions and give them an opportunity to grow and change, it will happen.
Awesome. Yeah, these questions are great. We have more coming in, Monica. You mentioned having a biannual self-check-in to ensure you're doing what you want to do career-wise. If you realize that you're not doing what you want to do, but you're unsure of what you do want to do next, what advice do you have on next steps? And how do you begin to move forward with an unclear path ahead?
Find someone you trust. That's number one. And talk it through. I often make a list of all of the things that make me happy and all of the things that do not make me happy. And this is something I learned from a career coach. It was not I say career coach, a life coach. It was not a career coach. It was somebody who was helping me work through balancing my life and my career. And she forced me to say, okay, I'm starting to notice I don't think you're happy in the role you're in. Let's tackle this career thing and let's figure out what you like about your job and what you would like to change about the things that you don't like. So that you have to do a lot of work at the onset, just figuring it all out. That doesn't mean you snap your fingers and the role appears. I think you have to first figure out all of the things that you need, that you want. I think I did an exercise, if I recall then, an exercise of need, want, and would like. And then I started thinking about roles that would kind of meet those different buckets. And you're never going to get all the buckets filled. Or if you do, please call me and let me know how you filled all the buckets, because I don't know that I have ever done that. I've been pretty close, but you never find something that's perfect. And perfect is not the goal. The goal is to find something that's going to make you feel fulfilled. So that would be the step one. Step two, again, I said, find somebody that supports you and that you trust. I would talk it through. Again, use your mentors, your support system, your network of people. I know lots of people call it your board of directors. They call it their, I've heard lots of different other names that I can't quite put my name on. But I've heard really good creative ideas for what you call your consiglieres, if you will, that give you advice on a regular basis. But it needs to be people you can trust and say, like, listen, I'm great at speaking in front of people, but I'm terrible at writing. Or I'm really great at leading, but I really don't like the day-to-day tactical aspects of being a leader. So you have to be really honest with yourself. And once you kind of work through that, you'll start to see opportunities arise, or you'll see where you have gaps to get to the next opportunity and how you're going to develop those talents so that you're ready when that opportunity does open, the door opens and it's right in front of you.
Right. So I must ask, since you brought it up, I'm curious, who's in your board of directors? I call it a squad, and I'll share just for transparency who's in my squad. I've got a group of girlfriends. Our daughters grew up together, and we talk about all things related to their development and wellness. I have a former executive coach who's now become a mentor and friend. And I've got another group of friends who are all attorneys, all Black women, who really coach me through some of the more prickly points of being in these spaces where we aren't always welcome. Who's in your board of directors? And you don't have to mention names if you don't want to, but who are sort of who makes up your crew?
Yes. Oh, that's a great. And I like a squad. A squad is a good one. Who's on my board of directors? So I too have a life coach. who is no longer my life coach, but I consult with very often. She's a very dear friend. I also have a group of women who are all professionals, none of them lawyers, purposefully. It's a diverse group of women, so from all different walks of life, both diverse in who they are as humans, but also diverse in the fields in which they're in. So some people in finance, some people in law, some people in pharma, some people in technology, et cetera. And I like pulling on that group of women to just talk about what we're going through and how it's different industry to industry, but also how it's very similar in a lot of what we're experiencing. I then have, what I would call like my Black Caucus, which is a bunch of individuals that I've met through all of the different careers of my life. And that's who I can be really open and honest about what it's like being a Black woman in a professional world, how opportunities are few and far between, and how we navigate these kind of more difficult waters. And then I have a group of women who, again, similar to you, are through child connections, and they're there just as a support system to ensure that I'm making good choices and doing the things that I'm supposed to be doing, but also balancing kind of my life. And lastly, I have a group of very small, it's 3 Black women who I trust dearly, who are lawyers, to talk specifically about career. Am I making the right choice? Am I making the right move? Should I be doing something different? Do you have ideas? Do you have job openings that you think I'd be the right fit for? And I kind of use them all in those different areas for those different reasons.
Fantastic, and very much parallels what I described with my my squad or my board of directors. So a couple more questions I think we've got time for, and this is a really interesting one. Very curious about your response. How do you navigate being volunteered, or in some cases perhaps voluntold, for opportunities in the DEI space versus, say, finance or legal projects that are more aligned with your professional training?
Great question. I'm trying to think how I want to answer this. So listen, it's frustrating sometimes. It's frustrating because we have limited time, and sometimes you're like, I don't want to spend all of my time only working on DE&I initiatives. But what I've learned is find some balance. So for everything that I'm voluntold or volunteered for, I make sure that I find an equal opportunity that is in my field or in an area where I want to develop. So that's kind of how I, in my head, legitimize it. I basically say like, okay, I will do this, and this is the opportunity that I want. I don't ask for that opportunity right off the bat, but pretty close to the opportunities that they're asking me to volunteer. Not only that, but volunteering for the things you may not necessarily want to do all the time, again, opens up your network to get you to the opportunities that you really do want. So I try and look at it through both lenses, but I really do try to balance, and it's okay to say no. I know we don't like to do that. I know that especially as Black women, we feel like we can't do that, but it is okay. I would be very choiceful about what opportunities I said no to, but it is also okay to say no. And I think people value understanding and appreciating why you're saying no. And then the next opportunity I would not say no to, but I would be very choiceful about making those decisions.
Right. And I also think that, it's fair, in those told scenarios to ask questions like, why did you think I was a good fit for this? To really sort of put it back on the person to make sure that they're thinking in a very inclusive way when they are decking folks against DEI projects and programs. I will tell you one thing that I'm trying to do more of is actually reach out to more non-diverse communities of professionals within my orbit to ask them to pitch in on DEI projects, so that it really sort of emphasizes that DEI is not just about the Black community, Latino, Asian women, that it benefits everyone. And so everybody should have a seat at the table. So
I love that.
fantastic. So we are just about 5 minutes or so out, and the questions are coming in. So would love to take another 2 or 3 if we have time. Here's one that I think is a really fair question as we're talking about DEI. How do we have our voices heard when Black faces are disappearing from the leadership level and we're told to look at diversity in age, gender, etc.? Things other than race, when no one on the leadership panel looks like me, how do you sort of get your voice heard? How do you amplify your positions and things that are important to you and your community?
I need to think about this one for a second. That's a great one. It's hard, but I think having clarity about what that voice says and what message you want to deliver is really critical. I think this is when allies are the most important people in your network, because they are the ones that need to amplify. It's great if I say something in a meeting, but I will always be viewed as the Black woman who made the comment about diversity, equity, and inclusion. But when my white colleagues, male or female, turn around and say, I agree. We need more representation in our clinical trials. I agree. We need to have more opportunities to bring in, students from HBCUs. Then all of a sudden that gets some traction and people start hearing and listening a little bit closer. But I also think it's important to use your voice in lots of different places, and we can amplify our own voices. So I know that I often use my LinkedIn when I'm feeling like my voice is not heard. I use other platforms. Sometimes I write. I really like writing. And so sometimes I write things and that's enough for me, but it allows my voice to have a lot of clarity and truth to it. And then when I actually do have to speak in other platforms, it resonates a little bit better. But I would love to think more on that one, because I think that we probably all could do a little bit better in that area.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It really is. So thank you for sharing. So just 2 more questions and then we'll close this out. What's in your toolbox of resources, Monica? It sounds like you're a reader. So do you listen to podcasts? What kind of recharges you and gets you ready for that next transformation point or challenge?
So what? I'm laughing because I read a lot. I like to read things that give my brain a break. So I read really corny, like romance novels and things, just again, to let my brain rest, because as lawyers, we read a lot. When I want to really get my creativity going and, think about things a little bit more innovatively, I love How I Build This. It's an NPR podcast. And it talks about people who started companies and how they started those companies and the setbacks that they went through. And it's one of my favorite podcasts. I also read a lot of like online, papers and magazines. I kind of find a topic that I'm really passionate about right now. It happens to be, the AI space, just like everybody else, but really how you use AI in the marketing world, because that speaks to my role in particular. And it's just so amazing. And understanding how the computer science aspect of it comes in and what types of roles we really are going to have to start thinking about in the future and how they're going to be very different. So I really consume anything and everything. But I do, we're so busy and we're always moving. And I'm sure you, like myself, have your job, then you have your kids, and I'm constantly Ubering them around here and there. So I find ways to listen to audiobooks and but there are ways to give my brain a little bit of a break and to bring that joy and happiness into my life. So I scroll TikToks. I try not to do it as much before bed, but I do all of the things so that I'm trying to stay up on what's most current and interesting, but at the same time, kind of give myself a little bit of grace and breather to have just some fun.
I hear that. And I love podcasts, so I'm definitely going to check out the one you just mentioned. So I want to start closing us out. First, I want to say what an amazing session. You are a wealth of wisdom, experience, and knowledge, Monica. So really appreciate you sharing your insights. I want to encourage everyone to share some of the insights that they learned today because, passing it on and encouraging others is super important. And I also thought, Monica, if you wouldn't mind sharing with this group, if they want to keep in touch or follow you, what's the best mechanism for doing so?
Absolutely. So I'm on LinkedIn. Connect with me. I will connect back. And I will respond if you want to talk, if you want to network. I'm happy to do so as well.
Awesome. Likewise, there aren't too many Zara Roberts-Geralds on LinkedIn, so you should have no trouble finding me. And if you have any trouble, then let me know who the other Zara Roberts-Gerald is. We have to talk. It's been a pleasure, Monica. I learned a lot and hope everyone else did. I think what you guys have next is a 45 or so minute networking break after this. So enjoy that. Thank you for your time. And we're very encouraged by everything we heard today. So have a wonderful morning or afternoon, depending on where you are.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed my time with you as well, Zara.
All right. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.